Cornwall has always attracted artists to move here to work, and still does. Which is why when the students chose portraits from the National Portrait Gallery collection, they naturally had a lot of artists to choose from. When Joy and the students looked at some of these portraits in more detail, they quickly became fascinated with the spaces that some of these portraits were taking in, and decided that since we have 3 of these on our doorstep, that's where they wanted to go on a field trip. The Leach Pottery, to see where Janet and Bernard Leach worked. Porthmeor Studios, in particular Studio 4, where Terry Frost was a tenant, and Barbara Hepworth Sculpture Museum and Garden, which of course was Barbara Hepworth's home and studio. Joy Gregory, our lead artist, also has an artist studio, so she could tell the students a little bit more about what such a space is like. The artist studio is a space that is both private and public at the same time. In particular, if your studio is in your home, you may have unfinished work in it that you're not quite ready to show somebody. You may have work in it that will never be finished because you can't quite resolve it to your own satisfaction. At the same time, it's a space you invite visitors into to form an opinion about your work, to buy something or to select something for an exhibition. It's a working space, so it can be very cluttered. There might be a lot of things in it that inspire you. At the same time, there might be things you want to tidy away, like the remains of your lunch. It's about choosing what to show and what not to show. As a studio visitor, there is the secret hope to glean something special about the artist. The hope that the space will give up something more. And while the 3 studio spaces that we have been visiting are not occupied by those same artists anymore, that hope is still there. And of course the simple joy to be in a beautiful space on a beautiful day. It's really lovely to observe someone experiencing these spaces for the first time. If you haven't been to Porthmeor Studios before, you're not prepared for that view behind that tall wooden door that goes right up to the ceiling. And when you step through it, your eyes are drawn to that big window and that spectacular view across the beach and the sea. The same view that Terry Frost would have seen every day that he worked in here. And the light coming through the window at the Leach Pottery, which is still in use. And while listening to stories about Janet Leach's childhood in Texas, you have to make way for the studio potters coming through, with their freshly turned, still wet pots on wooden boards, trying to find a surface to put them down on for the pots to dry. You get a real glimpse of what it would have been like when Janet Leach managed the pottery. Or when you walk up the cobblestones to the Hepworth Museum and enter what looks like this tiny cottage and then step up and out into this green space that is Barbara Hepworth's garden. As this project is so much about connecting people and place, it's great to be able to tread in the footsteps of 3 of our sitters in this way, to stand in the same place they stood all these years ago. And if you visit these studio spaces yourself, you can see from their portraits that they're still pretty much the same they were back then. But experiencing a space and place in this physical way, standing in it and moving through it, is very different than just seeing an image of it.